यतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनाशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। I'm very grateful to be here amongst all of you. You're all extremely dedicated, as I can understand, because you are balancing your studies, right? You're all mostly students. You're balancing your studies along with a very regulated spiritual life, and you all are also nicely guided by some wonderful Vaishnavas here. So I am just very fortunate that I am able to get your association here. So I have been asked to speak on this topic, which is the relationship between the spiritual practices that we execute and the development of character. The reason of that color coding you will understand in due course of time of the character. All right. So we'll start with a video if this works. I don't know. We'll see. It's going to work. It's okay. In the US, this is known as Thanksgiving sale. This is called ticket in US. The police gives tickets from time to time. So, just thought of starting with this to give you a sense of how the world is operating. Any thoughts when you saw that? There are two, I want to ask you, there are two common things that we can find in all the conditioned souls like us. What are those two common things? Yeah. So we are all actually looking for happiness, right? That's the first thing. And secondly, we are all looking for happiness in a selfish manner, as we see by default. Because our life begins on the animalistic platform, unless there is something to elevate our consciousness. So when we come in contact with scriptures like Bhagavad Gita, they give us a platform to evolve our consciousness from the very base sort of animalistic level, and then it rises us to dutiful, and then makes us detached, and then devotional. This is the trajectory in which the Bhagavad Gita is leading us into higher and higher realms of consciousness. So generally our life is kind of operating at 5 dimensions. At the basic level, we are operated by our attractions and repulsions with respect to different sense objects we come in contact with, which is basically bodily platform or physical platform. Then mind acts as the storehouse of different kinds of impressions, which only registers pleasure. And therefore the tendency that we carry is to somehow or other remember the past experiences, right? Something that gave us pleasure and we want to repeat it. And therefore we look for opportunities to see how I can get the same kind of experience of pleasure, right? So therefore certain objects, they stir up certain kind of memory. Hey, that was really fun, and let me go into it. Or that was really not so great, and therefore let me run away from it. And therefore mind is like a binary processor with I like it and I don't like it. These are the two options that always go hand in hand. Therefore mind is simply registering different varieties of experiences relatable to pleasure. Intelligence generally has got two, you can say, modes, or two aspects. One is the Sankalan Shakti, another is the Vivek Shakti. Sankalan Shakti is the analytical power that we generally employ when we are studying and so on and so forth. But actually, from the Bhagavad Gita standpoint, the intelligence that Bhagavad Gita is talking about is more Vivek Shakti, or the discrimination power, to distinguish between right and wrong, to distinguish between what is eternal, what is temporary, what is good for us, what is not good for us. And therefore, using that, it is meant to have control over the mind. But usually the system is opposite, that you all are familiar with that analogy that is present in the picture, right? So generally what is driving the show is our senses, which are getting always attracted to different sense objects, and therefore we are pushed and pulled by those sense objects. And then mind in turn is getting pulled. So in this picture, the reins represent the mind, right, which is connected to the 5 wild horses. And intelligence is the driver, right? But usually the senses are so strong, they are just taking control over the whole system. And therefore the driver practically does not have enough power to drive this chariot in the right direction. And likewise, ego comes into the picture, which always tries to reinforce the conditionings of the mind, and it reinforces by carrying varieties of false conceptions about who we are, what is this world about, how to find happiness, and so on and so forth. So these are essentially our subtle bodies and the gross body together making up the materialistic part of our existence. But higher than that is our actual identity, which is that we are spirit soul. And that spirit soul has got two features again. Like, one is that the soul can make choices, and at the same time the soul is in a position to seek help from higher intelligence, from God. Correct? So this is just depicting the 5 dimensions in which we live our life, and which particular aspect we give control to determines the quality of our existence. So ideally speaking, we are supposed to be that passenger with a strong volition power, the passenger representing the soul, right? And it's supposed to tell the intelligence, I need to go there, and the intelligence is supposed to obey the command of the soul. But if we are not able to take charge of the intelligence in this way, then the whole system is getting driven by the wild horses, and we have a bumpy ride. And the experience that was shown by that short movie was basically how, when we are controlled by the wild horses or our uncontrolled senses, what happens essentially. So I wanted to welcome Aryan. He is my nephew, and he is just starting in Punjab University studying law, future lawyer. So I would like all of you to welcome him later.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
All right. So now we are getting into the topic of how, when we are actually forgetting our identity as a spirit soul, what happens. Like, so we are fundamentally a spirit soul, right? According to Bhagavad Gita, mame vansh jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana. So we are not supposed to be a product of matter, although we think we are a product of matter, but we are actually spirit soul. And that's because the spiritual consciousness of the soul is covered at the moment. So there are different packaging that are going on. So on top of the spirit soul, there is first the subtle covering, right? The subtle covering is basically mind, intelligence, and ego. And then there is the gross covering. It's just like we are wearing a shirt and a jacket on top, right? The subtle body and then the gross body. But there is one more covering, which is the covering of the material world. So you can imagine what's the position of the soul. That soul is really like entrapped with multiple levels of covering. So the question really is, what is character? So the soul is supposed to be endowed with spiritual qualities. The character is essentially manifested by the intrinsic qualities of the soul. This is where I'm defining character. So character is something which is coming out when the intrinsic qualities of the soul, they come out and they operate. On the other hand, what we generally know as personality is exhibition of the materialistic consciousness, which is generally due to the misidentification of the soul with its covering. So when the soul starts identifying with the covering and thinking that I'm this body, I'm this mind, I'm this intelligence, it starts actually exhibiting the characteristics of the covering as opposed to the intrinsic quality of the soul. And therefore there is a big difference between character and personality. So let's try to think what could be the characteristics that can come out in that position of misidentification. So these are the default characteristics of material consciousness. You all know Kam, Krodh, Lobha, Moha, Mad and Matsarya. Right? So we are going to learn a little bit clearly those things. Okay. The first thing is Kama. Kama means lust. How would you express lust? If you want to personalize it, how would you express? Yeah, I want to enjoy. Right? That would be the expression. I want to enjoy. So that is what is lust. Okay. What about greed? Oh no, anger. Kama, Krodha. Let's go in sequence. Krodha. Anger, how would you express? I want to destroy. Okay. What did you say? Bada ho jana chahta ho, that is not so much anger. That is something else, but we're going to see. So anger is my lust is unsatisfied, right? Isn't it? Kamesha krodhesha rajo guna samudbhavaha. And also it is stated dhyayato vishan punsa sangasteshu pajayate sangat sanjayate kama kamat krodho vijayate kamat krodho vijayate. When the lust is frustrated, then anger gets generated. And according to Bhagavad Gita, lust is bound to be frustrated. Right? Avritam jnanam etena jnanino nitya verina kama rupena kantya dushpurena analinacha. So when you try to satisfy the lust, it is just like pouring gasoline into the fire. By pouring gasoline into the fire of lust doesn't get extinguished, but it burns with increasing intensity. So the lust can only grow ad infinitum. Lust can never be satisfied. And therefore, if there is lust, there must be anger. Sometimes people say, I have anger problem. But actually, it is a lust problem. You understand? Because anger is simply a byproduct of the frustrated lust. That's all it is. How would you express lobha or greed? Okay, that's correct. I want more. Right? That's what is greed. It's pretty much lust put in sort of infinite and infinitely growing. Okay. Then how would you express pride? Which one is pride, by the way? Kama, Krodha, Lobha and Madha. Yes. Madness. Because okay, how would you express pride? I'm God. Okay. I'm the controller. I'm the controller. Yeah, good. I would put it in this way. I'm the greatest. That makes sense? I'm presenting in this way just so that you can resonate. Okay. It's one thing to say, okay, we have Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Moh, but it's better to personalize so that you can detect when we are actually facing that particular enemy, you know. Okay. Then what else? This is what? Which is Moha, right? Okay. How would you express illusion? Yeah, I'm this body. I'm my body. Yeah, exactly. Because that is the fundamental illusion that we carry, and then everything else is born from there. And then finally, Matsarya, right? Envy. How do you express this? Why he is greater than me? Okay, that's your positioning in a question form. How would you put it in a statement? Any? Yeah, that's one expression. Yeah, exactly. So this is not just I want more, but I want more than you. Okay, that's what is envy. Are you able to resonate with these feelings? Yes, good. That means you are being honest. Because honesty is the beginning platform of spirituality. If there is no honesty, there is no question of spirituality. So it's very important to first of all understand where we stand if you want to rectify our consciousness, materialistic consciousness. These are the default characteristics of material consciousness. So now let's just very quickly see what is the difference between personality and character. Just like we said, personality is just the exhibition of the materialistic consciousness, while character is the intrinsic quality of the soul. All right. So personality is basically a projection. We try to project something, like how we want to be represented in this world. Character, on the other hand, is an expression, which means that personality is more or less outside in, like we just want to fit in a particular environment, while character, on the other hand, is inside out. What is inside as a quality is coming out. Personality is all about taking. Character is all about giving. Personality is all about exploitation, and character is about making contribution. Does that make sense to you? So overall, if you want to summarize, it's basically personality is a temporary pretense, while character is a sustained reality. There was a
Could you relate with the previous slide you saw that character is coming from the soul and the personality is coming from the subtle?
exactly.
Projection, expression, how?
So basically, the projection is because the soul misidentifying with the covering, and therefore, based on the needs of the covering, it is trying to exhibit certain characteristic, as opposed to expressing the fullness of the spiritual characteristics of the soul. That's the relationship between that slide and this. Does it make sense? Yeah, expression is basically the expression of the soul, or the intrinsic quality of the soul getting expressed in its most natural way, and therefore that is the sustained reality. So there was a very high positioned employee in a company in Bay Area. Bay Area means San Francisco or San Jose, that area in California. Just like here we have Bangalore as the Silicon Valley, right? So there, the Bay Area is considered to be the Silicon Valley in United States. I'm telling you a real story actually. There was a very high positioned employee. He was very, very intelligent, almost like a fellow. Fellow in a company is like one who has reached certain level, very highly respected. So, in companies, every year there is a period of assessment where they take 360-degree feedback from everyone in order to evaluate where you stand. So this person was very intelligent, genius level figure, but the problem is that nobody can actually work with him. He has certain characteristics, because he just thinks that I just don't need anybody. I can figure it out myself. So he had multiple subordinates or reports in the company, but he would never have any meetings, nothing. He will just try to get things done by himself most of the time. And those who are the employees, they would get actually quite suffocated in that kind of environment. So in the feedback time, they gave the feedback that we just cannot work with this person. So then the CEO of the company, he thought that what to do. Like let us put him through a course, where he can probably learn. So in that course, it's course on emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is a very important topic, especially for employees. So then, this person who was sent to that course, he says that actually I have a question to the instructor, that can you please help me to reach a level so that I may be actually not listening, but I may appear to be listening to others. Do you understand? Because emotional intelligence is all about awareness and then trying to operate with that awareness. And therefore, listening is a very important component in that. But because he is well known for not listening to others, so he wants to learn not the art of real listening, but he wants to operate in such a way that Others may feel that he is listening. So this is what is the example, the real example of what is a temporary pretense. So sometimes we really don't want to reform ourselves from inside, but we just want to change the outside in such a way that we just somehow fit in. That makes sense? That is the key difference between personality and character. Therefore, if you want to build character, I said rebuild because after all, fundamentally we are all spirit souls, right? It's just that those characteristics are not able to come out. So how can we rebuild character? As you saw, fundamental to character is giving, making contributions. So we can build characters by three forms of giving. So we can give upward, give downward, and what is the third possibility? Huh? Give up. Okay? And they correspond to three things that Bhagavad Gita stresses upon. Bhagavad Gita says in the 18th chapter that three things must never be given up under any circumstances. What are those? Sacrifice, charity, and austerity. Giving upward is essentially sacrifice. Right? Giving downward is those who are less fortunate, we try to perform charity. And giving up is performing austerities. This is how we build character, by participating in sacrifice, charity, and austerity. So now, in order to actually give, we must first receive. We cannot give anything to others if we ourselves do not have. So we need to learn how to actually, first of all, receive. So if we are actually a good student of the Bhagavad Gita, we will get at least these two qualities, humility and courage. Because it takes humility to receive, and it takes courage to give, to become an active contributor in this world. Therefore, we should receive with humility and give with courage. And that is most effectively developed through the process of mantra meditation, which is the preeminent process of yoga. How do we know that it's a preeminent process of yoga? Because Krishna says that. Why does Krishna say that? Yoginam api sarvesham mad katina antaratmana shraddhavan bhajate yomam same yuktatamo mata. What does Krishna say? That the highest form of yoga is bhakti yoga. Bhajate yomam, shraddhavan bhajate yomam is what? Performing bhakti yoga. And performing mantra meditation is the foremost form of bhakti yoga. Right? And therefore, this is how we actually cultivate humility and courage according to Bhagavad Gita. I'm going to skip this slide because it's a little heavy slide, but maybe some other day. Okay, so we actually have natural connection with the source of our existence, who is Krishna. Right? So it is not something that when we are practicing bhakti yoga, it is something that we are extraneously doing. Right? What is generally understood that Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sadhya Kobhu Noy Shravanadi Shuddha Chitte Koroy Uday. The love of God is eternally established in the core of our heart. It is not to be obtained from outside, but it is meant to be rekindled from inside. So what happens when we are practicing mantra meditation? We are essentially agreeing to engage in loving relationship with the Supreme Lord. It's an opportunity to receive reciprocation back from the Supreme Lord. We are establishing a relationship. That's what is essentially the process of mantra meditation. It's a relationship that we are establishing. So this particular verse is stating that it's just like if you take a matchbox, right, to light fire, you strike, right? So what you're doing is that the fire that is already inside the wood is just coming out. The fire is not external to the wood. The fire is intrinsic to the wood. It just, you are engaging in a process that is making the fire that is already inside come out. Right? And the process is the striking process. So likewise, for the soul, all the good qualities are already there in the soul. Right? The ability to connect with the Supreme Lord is also there within the soul. The potentiality for connection, potentiality for receiving love, it's all there in the soul. So it just, we are embracing a bona fide process, just like the bona fide process of bringing out the fire is striking, right? So when we are engaging in the chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, all we are doing is we are striking, and then the qualities and the love that the soul is eternally hankering for, it just comes out in its full glory. And so love essentially is therefore all about doing everything for the pleasure of the beloved. Now we belong to Krishna, we belong to God, right? And therefore naturally that's the place where we would be reposing all our loving propensity. It's just but natural. So in the mantra meditation, what happens is that we take these three words, right? Hare, which means the pleasure giving potency of God, Krishna, the all attractive God, and Rama means the reservoir of all pleasure. Right? So what's happening is that we take these names, we multiply, and then we permute. We get this Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Right? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So when we chant, because of establishing relationship with God, there is purification and transformation of our desires. And as a result, there is awakening of love of God. And when there is awakening of love of God, there is nothing that we hanker for anymore in this material world. And as a result, we become more inclined to give rather than take. That makes sense? So I'm going to establish a little more fundamentally. Okay? So look at this. So this is what happens when we are chanting. Okay? So connect. So connect means what? When we are chanting, what we are doing is we are connecting. Connecting with what? Connecting with Krishna in the form of the holy name, right? Nama Chintamani Krishna Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha Purna Shuddho Nityamukto Abhinatvam Nama Namino. There is no difference between Krishna and Krishna's names, right? That's the basic axiomatic principle on the basis of which the chanting is working, right? Because there is no difference between Krishna and Krishna's names. If we chant water, 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 it doesn't quench our thirst because the name water is different from the object water. You understand? But in the case of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Because there is no difference, Abhinatvam Nama Namino, because there is no difference between the names and Krishna, therefore, just by uttering Krishna, Krishna is right there in the sound vibration. And therefore, when we are chanting and paying attention, we are connecting. We are connecting with Krishna. Right? So this is the fundamental spiritual practice that we perform. Correct? So we are connecting with God when we are paying attention and not committing offenses. Right? Then we are connecting. When we are connecting, then what happens? It reawakens loving relationship with God. Right? Because we are taking interest in Krishna. Because chanting means what? You take interest. I want to now call your name. I'm taking interest in you. Right? When we are not paying attention, it's just like we invite guests to our home. As soon as the guest comes, we go to the bathroom. You understand? Nobody to greet. But when we are paying attention, when we are calling out, the guest has come, now we are giving our undivided attention to the guest. So naturally, there will be striking of loving relationships. There will be reawakening of loving relationship with God. As a result, we are in a position to now accept grace from the Supreme Lord. And the grace comes in the form of guidance and empowerment. And because of receiving the grace, we are able to transform our desires. You understand? Because of that, we are able to transform our desires. Those animalistic propensities that I showed in the beginning, they get dissolved. There is elevation of consciousness. We get higher quality of desires. Param drishtva nivartate. Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehina. Rasavarjam rasopyasya param drishtva nivartate. Those sensual attractions bother us less because there is now elevated desires. So when there are higher qualities of desires, we are in a position to contribute. Therefore, we can perform those three kinds of giving that I described. Now we are still left with certain letters here, right, in the character. And you can see. So when we are chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra, we are actually calling out to whom? Srimati Radharani, Hare, which is the pleasure-giving potency of the Lord. So essentially, it is by the mercy of Srimati Radharani or Hare that we are able to develop these qualities and able to elevate our consciousness. So Hare is the driving force. So you can now see why those characters in the word character were colored differently. You can see the whole character manifest here, yes? Alright. So now what happens when we are able to, in this way, spiritualize our consciousness? How do the default characteristics change? So I want to enjoy should change to what when they get spiritualized? Lust becomes what? Yeah, and therefore what should be the expression? I want to enjoy should become? Exactly. Exactly right. So lust becomes love. This is what is transforming matter into spirit. I want to serve. What do you think anger should become? Any thoughts? Kindness, okay. And how would the expression be? Here, previously, my lust is unsatisfied. Prahlad Maharaj Shloka, okay.
I'm completely satisfied.
Mm.
I mean, when I cry when I see the prettiest situation of the world.
Okay. That Magna Chitta, right? Okay. So anger becomes controlled anger. Think about Hanumanji. Right? Hanumanji utilized his anger to do what? To burn Lanka. But how do we know that Hanumanji's anger was controlled? He did not burn the Ashok Vatika or Vibhishan's home. So it's not that, okay, out of anger, like, oh, everything got burnt, That's called controlled anger. So this is basically, I will use anger to reform my consciousness as well as reform the society. So that is how the anger gets transformed. What would greed gets transformed into? Mercy. Okay, yeah, exactly. Spiritual greed, exactly. I'm greedy for more service. So it becomes spiritual greed. How about pride? I'm the greatest. How? It's kind of obvious. Yeah, humility. But I like to put humility in this way. I'm dependently significant. Because humility doesn't mean that, like, okay, I can't do anything. I'm so humble that I cannot even bring a glass of water, The idea is to recognize our dependent position in relation to God, and because I'm dependent, I'm therefore am of some service. So I'm dependently significant. That is humility. Illusion will get transformed into what? Yeah, knowledge, and which is I am a spirit soul, and my body is simply a covering. And envy, I want more than you, should become, okay, respect. So that's how I like to put it. So respect is basically, if you want to define respect, it's a recognition of the intrinsic value of others and try to facilitate the development of that. So therefore, these are the characteristics of the transformed spiritual consciousness as a result of what? The spiritual practice, which is the chanting of Hare Krishna Mahamantra. And I showed how exactly that happened, correct? So this is the overall takeaways. So what is character? Just to summarize, the intrinsic quality of the soul coming out. How do we build character? By first, what are the steps we mentioned? You connect. As a result of connection, you reawaken love of God, and therefore you accept your position, accepting grace, which comes in the form of guidance and empowerment. And as a result, you can transform your desires, and with the transformation of the desire, you're in a position to contribute. And the driving force is Hare, right? And we also discussed the qualities of covert consciousness versus evolved consciousness. And evolved consciousness which is coming out as a result of the practice of mantra meditation. Thank you very much. Any questions? Question? Your name? Lalan. Okay. Which university are you in? Punjab University. Okay. Soul has what?
Tendency to enjoy it.
Yeah.
But Prabhupada says that all souls are equal, and still they are individuals.
Yeah.
But how can we relate that they are same and they are equal? They are same, equal, but individual.
Yeah. So this idea about the propensity to enjoy is coming from the Vedanta Sutra, right? Anandamayo Abhyasat. Every soul has the fundamental characteristic to enjoy, right? But the problem right now is that our strategy for enjoyment is a problem. Where we are looking for enjoyment is a problem. That is the issue. Your question is that, okay, we all are equal in that respect, that we all are spirit soul having the intrinsic propensity for seeking spiritual enjoyment. So where is that individuality coming from? The individuality is coming from our misidentification with the covering, which is acted upon by the gunas, the three modes of material nature. When we talk about the personalities and all those things, we're essentially talking about the mixture that is going on with the three modes of material nature, the rajas, tamas primarily, and sometimes mode of goodness once in a while. But it's basically the individuality is all about the mixture with respect to the modes of material nature. And depending on, so you can think of like this, like a prism, right? You pass white light, you get a spectrum of colors, right? When you pass white light to the prism, you get the spectrum of colors. So the prism here is essentially, you can think of the gunas, you know.
How do individual souls can be affected by the gunas? Because as such we have example, this is like electricity is also born in this
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
but electricity is the same.
Right.
How can these two affect this electricity?
Yeah, the thing is that the
soul of my soul, the soul of the dog soul, cow soul.
Yes.
But these individual, I know these are same, but how they are individual? soul has the individual quality?
Yeah. So first of all, soul is fundamentally individual. Okay, let's be very clear. Every soul has been created in such a way they are parts and parcels. The part and parcel is a very loaded word. Prabhupada's usage of the terminologies are perfect. Part generally signifies the qualitative oneness. Parcel signifies the quantitative difference. The qualitative oneness aspect of the part is that just like any drop of the ocean will have the same kind of chemical composition of the gigantic ocean, right? So that is the part aspect. The parcel aspect is the individuality. The individuality meaning that the soul will have its own volition power, the free will aspect. And because the soul has the free will, the soul will also have the possibility of misusing the free will.
Does soul have the free will, or our gross or our subtle body has the free will?
No, the soul has fundamentally free will.
Because we have directed our gross body or
Yeah.
our
So I'm just now expressing fundamentally what happens is because the soul has the free will, right? With the utilization of the free will, the soul can make the right choice or improper choice. Otherwise, what is the meaning of free will?
Is that the soul is making choice, or our mind and intelligence?
No, the soul. The soul. So what happens is that when the soul makes a faulty choice, okay, the faulty choice is that I want to find enjoyment independently of Krishna. There are only two choices, right? The volition power of the soul can be utilized fundamentally in two main ways. One way is that I want to be naturally a servant of Krishna. I want to find enjoyment in cooperation with the enjoyment of the Supreme Lord, right? The second possibility is that I want to find enjoyment independently of the Supreme Lord. This is a fundamental choice that the soul can make because of the free will. That like this is the again going back to that point that the soul, we all are tatastha. Tatastha means like we are on the bank, like a particle of sand on the bank, which can sometimes be covered over by the water and sometimes not be covered over by water. Right? Because we are marginal potencies, because we are tatastha, therefore we are in a position to misuse our free will. So we can properly use our free will or misuse our free will. When we misuse our free will, then we are given this wonderful facility of this material world, this prison house, and we are given dresses which are kind of, you can say, aligned with the nature of desires that we carry, and then we misidentify with that covering and then expand on that fundamental misuse of the free will, and then we express our individuality in so many ways in trying to enjoy this realm of matter. So individuality is always there in the spirit soul. Right? Na tu evaham jatu nasam na tvam na ime janadhipa na chaiva na bhavishyama sarve vayam atah param. Right? 2.12 Krishna says, right? That is the verse that Krishna brings out the individuality of the soul. What does Krishna say? That Arjuna, so he's saying, na tu eva, never was there when you did not exist as a jiva, right? Nor now, nor in the future, right? Ever that you will lose that individuality of being that spirit soul or a jiva. And likewise, I was Krishna before, I am Krishna now, in the future also I will be Krishna. So your position as a spirit soul will remain the same, my position as the Supreme Personality of Godhead will remain the same. So you are individual, I am individual. That's the verse that actually brings out the fundamental individuality of the soul. But that individuality can be, you can say, exploited by misusing. And then when we misuse the free will, then we get opportunities to misidentify with the covering and then further expand on that individuality. And then we kind of take cross products with the gunas, and then it's like a lot of colors manifesting.
We can say that we have a part and parcel of the God.
Yes.
Like a candle burned from a different
No. So there are two kinds of parts, or two kinds of anshas. Let me not use the part now. There are two kinds of anshas of the Supreme Personality of Godhead or the Supreme Lord. One is called Swa Ansha, another is Vivinna Ansha. Swa-ansha is fitting into the analogy that you're giving, that a candle burning from another candle. So the second candle is glowing with the same kind of luminosity. So that is Swa-ansha. But we do not fit into the Swa-ansha category. We fit into the Vibhinna ansha category. So therefore we are separated anshas. So what does Krishna say? Mama eva ansha. But Krishna says, Mama eva ansha jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana. So Prabhupada in the translation makes sure we understand that we are separated parts and parcels of Krishna. That we are Vibhinna ansha. So Prabhupada makes that clarification. Just so that we don't think that I am just like another candle which is burnt from the original candle. That makes sense? No? Okay, keep going. Yes.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I just want to ask, you were saying that this character manifests from the spiritual quality of the soul. Okay, so in this regard, I like in 16th chapter, Lord Krishna says that the divine quality, demonic quality, and it appears that this divine quality is coming from what a goodness.
Pure goodness.
Pure goodness. However, there in the sadhu quality, Kapil Muni, Tiksha, Karan.
Yes. The Kapil Munis.
Yeah, they are coming. I mean, from there we can relate. They are coming from the spiritual.
Yes. Those are the characteristics of the. Thank you for bringing that up. Yes. Yes.
But here it appears like it is coming from goodness.
Yeah. So the thing is that all of these characteristics, right, when it is manifested from pure mode of goodness, then it is the characteristics of pure characteristics of the soul. But then it can also get covered to different degrees, so when the goodness gets mixed, then the qualities also get mixed. So the qualities, each of those qualities can be pure to the highest possible degree, and at the same time they can be little mixed depending on how exactly the mixture is going on. It makes sense?
And regarding the question you were asking, that the choices on the spiritual level, this is explained at the foundational and the spiritual level, we can serve Krishna or we can rebel Krishna.
Yes.
And then it is manifest on the mental level, is sankalpa, vikalpa.
Yes.
Accepting rejection.
Yes.
In multiple forms.
Yeah, that's like when we are in the material pool. Yeah.
So I mean, the mind level also there's some choices. Make.
No, so when you're talking about in the spiritual world, okay, if you're talking about spiritual world, the soul is also having spiritual body, right? Mind, intelligence, and true ego, right? There is spiritual body, but the spiritual body becomes shrunken, and right now, like we are covered by the material mind, material intelligence, and false ego. You understand? So the soul has got all these, you can say, senses as well, but that's not what we are experiencing. What we are experiencing are the coverings basically, and therefore what happens is that when we become liberated, like Kapil Dev also says in the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, liberation is tantamount to dissolution of the subtle body. Death is essentially what? Dissolution of the gross body, right? Liberation is dissolution of the subtle body. The reason for our incarceration within this material world is the subtle body. As long as the subtle body is there will be all kinds of desires and so on and so forth. I think the question that you're asking is kind of leading towards the fall down of the jiva question. You are kind of leading in that direction, if I'm understanding correctly, which is a very, very controversial topic. And I don't think I can resolve that for you. But do you want to ask another follow-up to clarify? I just want to make sure that you understand that it's not like the candle analogy. That makes sense or no? Like what we discussed so far?
This will make sense.
Okay.
I understand that these were the what two types?
Vivinangsha, Swansha.
And same.
There are two things you have to keep in mind. One is this Vivinangsha and Swangsha distinction. And the second thing you have to keep in mind is that we are marginal energies. We are not like the eternal residents of the Goloka Vrindavan planet, because those souls like Nanda Maharaj, Yashoda, they are special. They are not marginal potencies like us. Like in the 15th chapter, Krishna says, right, there is Shara and Akshara. And Krishna positions himself beyond Shara and Akshara, right? As Purushottama. So Shara is those who are fallible. Akshara are those souls which are infallible. So the eternal residents of the Goloka Vrindavan, those who are closest associates of Krishna, they're all Akshara, right? We are all Shara because we are marginal potencies. So these distinctions we have to also keep in mind, along with the Vibhinangsha and Swangsha aspect. So we are very special in that sense. We are different. Yes. Your name? Ayodhya. Wow.
His personality is a kind of negative term, and his character is a kind of positive term.
Yes.
We should not be running forward to the good personality, but we should run towards a good character.
It's just that everyone will have personality depending on their psychophysical nature. So personality is essentially psychophysical nature, right? Psychophysical nature meaning it's the nature that is born out of the modes of material nature. And therefore, ultimately, we know that the goal is to purify ourselves or transcend the modes of material nature, right? Mam chayo abhyabhicharana bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatityaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. Right? So we are supposed to go above the modes. That's another way of looking at it. Right? So character is basically when we are coming out or transcending the modes. As long as we are operating within the modes, it's personality essentially. That's what I'm trying to express. These are different ways of looking at the same thing. So we cannot, my point is that we cannot avoid personality. You cannot just say, okay, I don't have any personality. We all have personalities. And those are all psychophysical traits that we exhibit. How we react to different circumstances of life. That's going to determine or validate our personality. But our goal is to somehow exhibit the two characteristics of the soul. And therefore, what I'm expressing is that when we genuinely practice a bona fide spiritual process, then what happens is that we increasingly move in the direction of the intrinsic characteristics of the soul, and therefore we are able to evolve in terms of our character. That's what I was trying to express. Make sense? Anything else? Yes. Sachit? Sachin, okay.
How to be focused, Krishna consciousness, so many distractions, or how many consistency?
Were you there yesterday also? No, okay. There was another Sachin, okay. Alright. Can you say that again?
How to be focused to Krishna consciousness, so many distractions.
Okay.
So many distractions, so many how consistency?
Okay, Bimar Padna is not like so much of a distraction. I mean, in the sense that's a bona fide distraction. There are distractions that we embrace voluntarily, and there are certain things which are forced upon us as a distraction. So those things which are outside of our control, they're outside of our control in one sense. So your question is that how we can actually practice spiritual life in a more focused manner and free from this whole world of distraction as time is progressing, as technology is developing, as you guys are going to contribute more and more, you're going to contribute towards the increased distraction within the society, right? We are all, as long as we are within the field of technology, we are all contributors to the distractions within the society. the weapon of mass distractions within the society. So, number of points. One is that association of devotees is a big protection. Association of devotees is a big protection from the distraction. Whenever we are alone, the tendency is to get distracted. What happens, like usually, like it's said that we all have um, public life, private life, and secret life. So as we become more and more kind of committed and faithful and sincere, um, that secret life goes away. It gets dissolved. In other words, we are more accountable to ourselves more than anybody else. Because what kind of character we have gets most reflected when you are actually alone. How you can actually maintain that intrinsic accountability. To that's why we need to all receive love in our life, because again, fundamentally, we can become free from distractions to the extent that we are receiving love. Then when we are in the presence of like all these temptations and provoking situations, we will start thinking that okay, for the sake of this person, whom we love, I'm not going to do it. Although in every possible way, my mind, my body is just attracted to doing, but I'm going to still not do it, because for the sake of this person I love, I'm not going to do it. Therefore, real protection is really love. That's what I would say. The strength of relationship that we have developed with at least one devotee, because of which we would stay on guard and not actually just give in to the temptations of the mind. And what happens is that in the college life, like because we are surrounded by different groups of friends and different. I mean, these days, like with all these um, internet and social media, like things are. I mean, we do not have to be like Ajamil to go to some place and to find a scene. The scenes are just just at our fingertips. And therefore, because by default our mind and body, they are not so equipped to face the formidable force of these temptations, and we generally fall for it. So therefore we have to really increase the quality of our sadhana, which is basically morning sadhana. Particularly the quality of your morning sadhana is going to be a big protection. The quality of your relationship with the devotees, like if you have really received love, that will act as a big protection. And of course, third is your own intrinsic accountability, you know to those whom you care, you know and that's going to help you. And that's why when we are hearing regularly, hearing can become a big protection, because what happens is that when we hear, the materialistic conceptions get progressively overwritten by the spiritual conceptions, to the extent that we are open in our heart towards the message. And therefore, when we have morning and evening hearing going on, then when we are placed in that particular tempting circumstance, what's going to happen is that we will start remembering, what did I hear today, as opposed to we'll try to slacken less. Mind is very tricky, it's very tricky. It will give all kinds of justification to fall for lower modes. So we have to be very careful, and therefore, at least like in our initial stage of development, we better not be alone. We better be surrounded by devotees. That's going to be a big protection. Does that make sense? And therefore the timing, the regulated schedule that you maintain, all those things are going to help protect. These are all like different ways we are protecting, because our faith is very pliable, our mind and senses are weak, and therefore we have to. It is said that the our environment is more powerful than our own determination initially, and therefore we have to work with our environment in such a way that we don't give that opportunity. You understand? If we mold our environment in such a way that opportunity doesn't even exist, the opportunity for distraction doesn't even exist. So we have to therefore, like with regulation, with the creation of surroundings that are conducive for spiritual development, you do things in such a way there is no opportunity. Because the thing is that if you give opportunity, because the mind has always gravitated towards lower modes, it will grab for that opportunity. Therefore, you have to somehow protect yourself by creating a stronger environment. Don't think that, basically, my point is that we should not think ourselves more advanced than we are. We should always think ourselves, I'm not at all advanced. I'm very weak. If you think that I'm advanced, I can take care of it, we'll definitely fall for it. And therefore, humility is also a very big protection. To think that, there is this beautiful story of Srila Prabhupada. You might have heard, I don't know. So Srila Prabhupada was sitting with his disciples, and Prabhupada asked this question: what is the difference between you and me? Have you heard this story? No. What is the difference between you and me? And the disciples got this wonderful opportunity to glorify Srila Prabhupada. You are this, you are that, like glorifying Srila Prabhupada. Then Prabhupada said, no, the difference between you and me is that you can fall down and I can never fall down. Okay, now, so this happened kind of in the morning hours. In the evening, Srila Prabhupada was taking darshan of the deities, and his secretary was just behind him, and he saw Srila Prabhupada in front of the deities murmuring something. So he was very curious. So after that, he approached Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada, can you please share what were you expressing before the deities? So Prabhupada was saying, I was praying to the deity that may I never fall down. Understand? And so Prabhupada, in the morning you just said that the difference between you and us is that you can never fall down. So Prabhupada said, now you know why. Understand? So if Prabhupada in his stature can be so humble, that may I never fall down. So we have to be very, very cautious and think that, yes, I can fall down anytime. Falling down is super easy. Just like the gravity is working at a physical level, actually gravity is working at a subtle level. All the, all these physical actions or the laws of physics, they also have subtle counterparts. In fact, they are all coming from the subtle counterparts, like the law of karma, law of gravitation. These are all actually true, even at the subtle level. You have to be very, very careful. Is that okay?
Hare Krishna.
Okay, I think we can stop. Thank you.
So, we'd like to thank this Parthaji. And so beautifully explained, it shows that Prabhuji has a deeper realization in scriptures. He imbibed the scriptures, and practically now he can explain everything. I was just going through this presentation. I was just thinking how this spiritual, this Krishna consciousness can become the solution for the entire world. संसार में आप जितने लोग इतनी समस्याओं से जूझ रहे हैं, everything is there in our scriptures. We can directly relate and quote them, and how we can transform the character, from lust oriented to love oriented. And the whole society will be better. And that's what everyone is looking for, the solution in society. But hardly if we have the preachers like him, those who are relating the scriptures. Of course, for this presentation, Yasyasya Bhakti Bhagavati Yakinchana Sarve Gunas Harava Bhaktasya Kuto Mahatina Manorathena Asato Bhavatu. Completely शास्त्रिक presentation from the scriptures किस तरीके से भगवान की भक्ति करने से everyone has the good qualities and very beautifully related with last slide how we connect with Hare Krishna Mahamantra, the source of all good qualities. So it gives a very strong faith, conviction, and we can see the reflections in the devotee also. We see in the reflection the devotee's quality, but when we see this connection, how it is exactly happening, it deepens our faith. So I'd like to thank Rosie for kindly elaborating the subject matter, and we request not to stop here. We'll have more future classes. Rosie, about half of the devotees are on holiday because they have gone for exams. So we request you more classes and different topics and widely discussion on practical aspects of how to be. Thank you so much. We chant one time Hare Krishna Mahamantra of Rosie.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Good thing is that my in-laws' home is just right across the street from the temple. So every year, I'm bound to come. I'm bound to come every year, and then also get your association in that way.
Please, I couldn't introduce properly. Could you say what service you are doing? You are there in the US?
I have been in US for last 22 years. It's been a long time. You mentioned that I'm a spiritual advisor and chaplain at Northeastern and Brandeis. I've been involved in college outreach since 2003. When I was a student myself, I started Bhakti Yoga Club in University of California, Irvine, and then when I moved to Boston, so I've been working for MathWorks, this company, for 16 years now. So 2006 when I moved, that time I started a club in Tufts University, and then later I started Northeastern and Brandeis, and for a period of 2 years, my wife and I both were involved in MIT outreach as well. But then during the COVID time, there was a pause, and then we never started in MIT. But we were involved in like these 4 or 5 universities there. Overall, my main driving force is thinking about how to actually connect with the audience there, like which is more Western mindset. So it's an ongoing meditation for me. Like every semester, I think about what strategy to change, to readjust here, readjust there, so that I can make things more relevant. And so it's been a continuous learning journey for me for all these years. Yes, I have been involved in the college outreach for a really, really long time. You can see it's 2003. So therefore, like when I get this opportunity, this is like I feel at home essentially. So what happened is that Radhesham Prabhu, he told me like whenever you're going to India, just send me your overall itinerary, and that's what I did, and that's how I happened to get connected. I didn't know anybody actually in the temple. It's just Radhesham Prabhu. I think he emailed a few people, and then that's how I got connected with a few. Yeah, that's the background. Yeah. I'm right now an engineering director there in MathWorks. Yeah, in US. And apart from that, I also actually I always forget. I also teach in Tufts University in the computer science department. I somehow they are always offering me this part-time faculty position. So every semester I'm also offering 2 courses. Anybody from computer science here? Oh, you are. Yeah, I have been teaching basically data structures and introduction to computer science every semester, practically speaking. Yeah. And apart from that, yes, we have 2 growing kids, and And my wife is actually also a professor in the university, 2 universities there. So we are all into the field of education. My wife teaches in Boston College and Northeastern University. So education had been definitely an area of our area in all possible ways. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Happy to be here.